the one word for Easter is about resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
And that resurrection really involves yourself. You know, Jesus talked a lot about what he taught was about you raising, or that Christ consciousness, raising yourself up to another level. Now, Easter, you know, you go in on the first day, you die and go in 3 days, which is symbolic, you know, and he resurrects or rises again on the third day. That story is really about you. And I know, going into a deeper esoterical perspective, that's what meditation is. That's what prayer and fasting is. During this, which in tune with the astrological time, this is a good time for you to go meditate. This is a good time for you to fast. This is a good time for you to be still. And on that third day, everything that you prayed about, meditated, journaled about, on the third day is for you to rise and move forward and start anew. Because, you know, if we look at this time of the year, even, you know, my father, still today, he's 82 years old. His whole thing is about putting seeds in the ground before Easter comes. And I know if you know, you down here in the South, folks wanted to have the seeds in their garden before Easter. So there's a significance with sowing and putting new seeds in the ground. So we can look at this Easter weekend, this resurrection weekend, about putting your seeds in the ground.
We got the cure, we got the answer to what's happening in society. We got the power to solutions and provide the healing that you need. We got the cure, we got the answer with discussions that will set you free. This is the Ark Republic, and you're listening to The Remedy. The Remedy. The Remedy. Greetings wherever you are in the world. My name is Kaya Niambi Shivers. I hope you are situated. I hope you are ready to receive some wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Today, we haven't spoken in a month of Sundays, but we are speaking to Todd Jackson, also known as Baba Todd. I'm going to allow him to introduce himself, but you know, we're gonna dedicate some time to talk about the religiosity and the spirituality of things, especially now. This is a very sacred time of the year for those who celebrate the Christian holiday of Easter. So, Baba Todd, who you be, brother?
Well, I'm here in Houston, Texas. My roots stretch from Texas to Mississippi, so I'm Southern all the way through
to the bone.
You know, and talking about the church, I was born and raised up in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, where I became an ordained minister in 1996. Began to venture and ask questions, and asking questions led me to study and compare other religious systems. I started looking at Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and I really honed in on African spirituality, where I was introduced to Afalabi Apega, Aluo Afalabi Apega, and he introduced me to Ifa, which has really been beneficial to me. It has helped me to understand and to help and assist our people who are still in church. So that's a little bit about myself. I got a wife and 2 children. And they grown children now. So yeah.
All right. Well, congratulations. Welcome to the semi-empty nesters club.
All right.
Yes. Well, you know, Baba Todd and I met through a mutual friend, and in conversation. This is how small the world is. My mother is from Louisiana. My mother's from Lafayette, Louisiana, but a lot of her family is in between St. Martinville and Broussard. My father is from Vicksburg, Mississippi, the SIP. And in conversation, we discovered that Baba Todd's mother and my uncle went to high school together, Temple High School in Vicksburg, Mississippi. We meet in we cross paths in our lives, and it's totally destined. And so when I speak about like spirituality and religion, it's a very necessary and essential topic, and it's a serious topic. So I am honored that Baba Todd has been what we call our, spiritual advisor on Ark Republic. And in December, if you were around, God willing, the creek don't rise, you must take part in Baba Todd's 21 Days of Power. It is an exceptional program. And so we'll talk about it more as it gets toward the winter time. But we are in spring. The spring equinox passed in March, a little bit less than a month ago. But I proposed a question to Baba Todd, who is a pastor, right? And also an Ifa priest, which is the Yoruba tradition of West Africa. And I really love that. I really think that's dope because he could speak multiple different languages to different people. And I posed the question and I said, if Jesus, the Christ, the Black Jesus, were alive today, who would he roll with? What would he be saying? And I'm gonna sit back and hear your thoughts, Baba Todd.
Well, looking at that Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago, and if he was the same cat, he would be working with the marginalized, the disenfranchised, those that have suffered under the oppression of capitalism, criminal justice system. So I don't see him doing anything different than what he did then. And those people would probably be somebody in the middle of Philadelphia, ninth ward in New Orleans. That's we call it the 5th and 3rd ward here in Houston. So that's probably where he will be. His address will be.
So let me get into some more particularities, of Jesus the Christ. Which can you please give me and us an understanding of who this God was, or this, whatever, however you want to describe it. How has Jesus been misconstrued over the times? Because what we know right now politically, people use Jesus for white supremacy, right? But can you give us an understanding of how you understand Jesus?
If you're really gonna talk about somebody that comes to be a savior, then you're looking at somebody in a position of being a liberator. And oftentimes the picture that we've been given of Jesus is somebody that comes to make us just get along, make us to love everybody, make us to love even that is detrimental. But everything about Jesus was about uplifting of those that have been downtrodden. This picture of Jesus that I'm giving is somebody that came to free the captives, and that is physically, mentally, and spiritually. And also, on the other side, to get us to get along with each other. He wanted to break the religiosity down and make it simple, because there was a lot of laws for people to live by. So he said, I'm gonna just give you 2 of them. Love the Lord thy God with all our heart, and love your neighbor as yourself. That's as simple as it can get, Kai. Because if I'm gonna love myself and I'm gonna treat you like I want to be treated, then I ain't gonna break in your house. I ain't gonna steal your stuff. I'm not gonna try to do harm to you. So, in a real quick synopsis, that's what I say Jesus is.
So what would be some of the conversation or that Jesus the Christ would be involved in today? Like what would be, because there are multiple stories in the Bible. I'm not a bibliophile. I'm not, well, that means a book lover, but like literally a Bible lover, studier. So I defer to you on that. However, there are multiple stories that resonate with me in terms of his life. One of them being the time where he went to a temple and they were selling things in the temple, like these ATM machines in the temple. Okay, all right. You don't got to say it. I will say it, Baba Todd. And he began to turn over the vendors' wares and clothes. And so this was a moment where the house of worship became so profane, it became a money-making location and site or an entity. So it's very clear that a lot of people who claim God, right? He might not have conversations with them. Who would he be speaking with?
In that story, the thing that comes to mind is those people that have been harmed by capitalism. Mm. And I'm not against capitalism, but what happened is that the poor people who traveled to come for that ceremony at that time, the Passover, needed to buy the animals to do their ritual, to make their offering. But those people that were in the market had raised the prices, just like they do when we got a storm or a hurricane. They raise the gas price.
Crisis capitalism. That's what they
there
call
you go.
And
so,
or disaster capitalism.
Yeah, that ticked Jesus off, because what he saw is that those people that have been marginalized, those people who've been affected by the money changes, he took offense to that. And so he started whooping behind. He started turning over some stuff, which to me also shows a revolutionary side. And that's the side we don't talk about a lot. Is, he really spoke up against the powers that be, and when I hear that story, I see the African side of Christ also as a spiritual leader, as a person that did ritual. African spirituality written all over that. So yeah.
I mean, well, the part of the world not even theoretically. Well, geography is political, right?
Yeah.
And so at one point in time, the part of the world that is said in which Jesus Christ comes from used to be considered a part of Africa. It wasn't called Africa then, but it was part of this landmass of deeply rich melanin people with curly 9 ether hair, right? And that looks nothing like these emaciated pale bodies that we see hanging from, across. Nonetheless, what makes Easter, as somebody who doesn't, even people who celebrate Easter, right? What makes Easter such a significant time in the year, not only as a Christian, but and we've had these conversations, Baba Todd, outside of what we're talking about now, but these holidays and these holy days and these observations fall on astrological or celestial moments of the year. So it's just more than just the church doctrine, but what is it about Easter that is so significant?
The one word for Easter is about resurrection. And that resurrection really involves yourself. Jesus talked a lot about what he taught was about you raising, or that Christ consciousness, raising yourself up to another level. Now, Easter, you go in on the first day, you die and go in 3 days, which is symbolic, and he resurrects or rises again on the 3rd day. That story is really about you. And I know, going into a deeper esoterical perspective, that's what meditation is. That's what prayer and fasting is. During this, which in tune with the astrological time, this is a good time for you to go meditate. This is a good time for you to fast. This is a good time for you to be still. And on that 3rd day, everything that you prayed about, meditated, journaled about, on the 3rd day is for you to rise and move forward and start anew. Because, if we look at this time of the year, even, my father, still today, he's 82 years old. His whole thing is about putting seeds in the ground before Easter comes. And I know if you down here in the South, folks wanted to have the seeds in their garden before Easter. So there's a significance with sowing and putting new seeds in the ground. So we can look at this Easter weekend, this resurrection weekend, about putting your seeds in the ground for the things you want to see happen, the seeds what you want to reap, what you want to see for yourself, your family, your community. This is a good time to do that. So all of this 3 days, 7 days, going in 40 years in the wilderness, 40 on the mountaintop, is all symbolic of this 3 days of Easter and resurrection.
So talking about sowing, let's talk about tilling the soil of the intellectual, spiritual understanding of the world. How does this connect to other spiritual systems in your studies? Like when you began to say, this does not exist in a vacuum. I see this in here and here and there. What are some of these systems that you see?
Whenever you go, well, what I see is all of them have this thing about understanding what purpose is, getting to the place where you understand who you are and what your assignment is. In Ifa, the Yoruba people have what we call the Ori, which is symbolic of, it's the mind, it's your essence, it's who you are, it's what you're here to do, what God has put you on this earth to do, what your assignment is. And in all of these religions, it's about coming to that place, that elevation. In the Bible, there's a scripture, Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And all systems fall in that same category. It's about renewing your mind, uplifting your mind, your way of thinking, seeing the God within you, seeing Jesus. Because, if you go back and look at a lot of the scriptures, Jesus was always talking about the heaven is within. I abide within you. And if you look at some of those other spiritual systems, Buddhism, it's about going within. Hinduism, it's about going. Even in Catholicism, there's more meditation when you go into the Catholic Church and Mass.
That's all you are is quiet in the Catholic Church. Trust me, I know.
That's Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. All systems talk about stillness. Because in stillness is where the revolution takes place, is where the evolution of your mind and your spirit takes place. So the 3 days that Jesus was in the tomb symbolized going within. And when you go within, you're meditating, you're contemplating, you're reaffirming, you're reassessing who you are and what you do. So that similarity of just the meditation of going within is across all spiritual systems.
Right. It brings me to this, saying in Yoruba, initiate yourself into yourself. Like even as a priest, you're responsible to go through these continual metamorphoses throughout, your existence. You cannot be, you are not who you are 10 years ago, 5 minutes ago. And so in order to kind of shed that old you must go through these processes of, of a butterfly, but it's initiating yourself into yourself, and understanding this new you and applying it. So I'm going to go back to more personal, and let's start with kind of like on the ground political. What is the response when you tell people that you are both a Christian pastor and a traditional African priest? Because in the United States and within the Christian system, under how we were reared, that is considered, God and devil. Like, so what is that like?
Well, because of, the 400 years that our people have been through psychological warfare, physical warfare, there's an element of fear that is always put upon you. And so it doesn't take much to scare folks or demonize. When we look at the Western philosophical thought of Christianity, everything is about fear. Everything is about control. So yeah, when people hear that, I'm practicing witchcraft. I'm doing some demonic stuff. I'm bringing about evil spirits. But when you don't know how many times I've been sent to hell. I got a spot down there, girl. But
Welcome to the club.
what what it has done is it has helped me to see the the African spirituality in the Old Testament and in Christ's life, which is all about elevating the individual. And the way Christianity is given to us, anything that is not along those parameters or comfortable for people, it's going to be considered demonic. It's going to be considered as you are somebody that is confused. You don't know which way you want to go. You're straddling the fence, but if and I guess this is another conversation we could have. If we could go through the whole Old Testament of just Jesus' life and all of the work that he did, some might say Jesus was the biggest hoodoo man around.
Word. He brought the dead back to life.
Dead back to life.
He made water into wine.
He took the clay, spit on it, and put it on the man's eyes and told him to go wash himself. If that isn't African spirituality, I don't know what it is. But I think the thing is that Jesus always talked about people seeing heaven within themselves. Abide. If you abide in me and I abide in you, you can ask for what you will. So to me, it's been a beautiful thing for me. It works for me, and it has been the one thing that I'm so glad that I did go to, because I've been able to help so many people with that. So God don't send you somewhere for nothing.
So when people come to you for counsel, because you're active in both aspects of your spiritual, let me throw out religious, but your spiritual journey, you're active in both. What do you hear other than, because of course we understand in white supremacy and domination and control, the slave master told you that in this text, where this is a clear, dark-skinned revolutionary who had to go into hiding and was a refugee in Egypt with his mama, which was her mother country, right? And comes back as a man, and only for 3 years, right, has this opportunity to raise the consciousness of the oppressed people, right? And arguably practices a form of what would be considered hoodoo. I don't know any pastor that could go in front of any place and spit in the dirt and make a man see, and people, half of the congregation not run out. But what is, other than having these ideas of this is not coming from a godly space, how do you, I have a couple of questions around this. What is some of the kind of overlapping or repeated conversations or concerns do Black folk have in terms of navigating their spiritual lives with all that has happened, right?
The one question I get, Dr. Shivers.
Yes, Baba Todd.
I don't care what they call themselves. I have sat down with people that are Muslims, Christians. It's this one thing. They want to know what their purpose is.
Ashe.
What they're here to do. Who are they? And so, because I have been able to synchronize my Christian principles with Ifa, hey, I love the church. I love the tenets that Christ preach and teach, and what our ancestors have given us. Ifa is an ancient, old spiritual system based off of nature, and there's nothing more powerful than fusing those two together. And it helps people to understand what their purpose is, because that's what everybody wants to know. What's my talent? What's my gift? And the beautiful thing is when people can leave out your door, hang up that phone, and you can give them clarity. Hey man, I know I'm on the right track. I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's nothing more beautiful for me, more fulfilling for me, when people say, I see now, I understand. I got a better glimpse. Now they can move forward like Christ said, and see the kingdom within themselves, and then live and walk in that way. Now they are the true embodiment of Romans 12:2. Their minds have been transformed.
What was that moment in your journey when you were on the path of trying to understand what do you need and who do you need to be in order to understand your purpose? What was that moment, or one of the moments, where it was affirmed that the path of being, it's like a double consciousness. It's like W.E.B. Du Bois's double consciousness, that you knew that this is who you were supposed to be and you were in your spiritual skin?
Oh, it's a number of things, but I can say this. And I was telling my brother the other day, we buried my grandfather, and 2 weeks later, I had this dream, and he came into my dream. Now in the church, they'll say that's demonic, but everything that he told me and showed me, I'm starting to see it to this day.
Wow.
Was one of the things. And there was another time I was leaving. This is the thing that probably that aha moment. I was leaving Nigeria in 2007, coming back home. And the driver, we were running late, so he had to take a shortcut. So we were
AKA crazy ass driving.
So he went through the rainforest, and I never forget. I was on the passenger window, kind of leaning out, trying to get the breeze, because it's hot in Nigeria in July.
Yes, sir.
And
hot and humid.
And I remember somebody walking out from behind the trees, one of the people that lived there, and the brother was blue black. He was purple. You ever heard black folks say that he was so black he was purple? Purple or blue, baby. And I remember in my spirit God saying that, and I say it was God. It could be ancestors, anybody, but the Spirit spoke to me and said that was the original man right there. And the brother was tall, looked like he was about 6'6". His arms and legs were long, and it reminded me of all the movies we see with the aliens. Wow. And further down the road, I saw him, and he just made an impression upon me. And further down the road from there, it says, now you're supposed to go back home, and you're supposed to tell our people who they are. And you're supposed to help them understand what they're here to do. So those are two of the moments that hit me, and I was like, okay, I know what I'm here to do. It ain't, so I don't care who got an issue with it, who don't like it. Yes, sir. I done heard my assignment. And so that's the thing. I heard and I've seen my assignment. And that's the thing that I feel I get fulfillment of helping other people to understand but you know what? All of us hear it. Some of us, because we have so much chaos going around, we don't have the clarity. I just help to bring out the clarity. To be able to maneuver between all the chaos and confusion. Yeah, I remember many moons ago, it wasn't me going through Nigeria. It was the most, when people say, like, what was the best trip you had? I always say it was when I was 25 and I went to Nigeria. Not because it was like these travel noir Instagram photos where you're glossy and you're looking beautiful and all of this. It was because I learned so much about myself, first and foremost. And I was so stripped down from all of the Western accoutrements while I was there. But just speed forward to my head was shaved. Okay. And I had some palm frond pieces wrapped around my head. And I was, I forgot where I was. Maybe I was in Abeokuta at this point. And I was very self-conscious because in Nigeria,
at the time, and it still it goes on. There is publicly a huge fight over traditionalists versus Christians versus Muslims, right? To the point where people get killed. So I was very self-conscious and very self-aware. And there was this old woman, unassuming. She walks by me. And I don't remember exactly what she said, but she said something like, "I'm so proud of you, that you know culture." And that made me smile like Celie on The Color Purple for like 20 minutes. Damn thing, right? And there's a couple, but that was just so profound for me. I'm in my feelings. I am a fish out of water. Like you said, I mean, in some places, depending on where I was, especially like maybe in Yoruba country, you know what I'm saying? I was considered more of a white woman than I was a black woman because of the skin. It was like profoundly melanated people there. And then this woman just rolled up on me and was like, "I'm proud of you. You did the damn thing." And so, yeah, I totally understand. So moving forward, right, to you being in both worlds, as we know, we've been through a whole lot in these last 2 years. And in particular, there's been a resurgence of race relations, something that always comes every about 25 years. What is in the spiritual channels on what we need to be doing?
The whole concept of memory and remembering. What I found 2020 COVID is the resurgence of ancestral information, ancestral people having dreams about their ancestors. And I saw that as the spirit world trying to get Black people to realign themselves, get back to, to get some equilibrium, to remember, to get us back in our right mind. Because I'm a firm believer. That's the only thing that's going to save you is the only thing that will save us is repairing and restoring the trauma, the ancestral trauma that we are experiencing. And that can be done by you healing yourself and reconnecting. Now, I'm not telling everybody to go out and get ancestor altars and all of that, but just reflect and honor Big Mama for what she did. And have a session on Memorial Day like you always do for everybody else. Memorial Day, 4th of July, those are ancestral days of remembrance for everybody else, but not yours. So whether it's Juneteenth, whether we need to go into the church and have a memorial service like Joshua did when he went across the river and set up the 12 stones, which is a memorial. And they asked him, why did he do that? And I'm giving you Bible Old Testament now. Ancestral work. And Joshua said, so when our children ask, what does this mean? We can tell them. So what Joshua was talking about, the reconnection to memory. And that's what we've lost. We need to be able to remember, reconnect the memory. And when you do that, that helps in healing trauma. That helps in healing, getting answers, revelation. So, that's part of our healing process, that a part of the thing that I've seen since COVID or the last 2 years is the resurgence of that ancestral energy, reaching back, trying to connect with family members. Because I've had so many people talk about, I had a dream about my grandmama. My grandfather came to me in my dream. I heard that more than I ever had. So that's just simply ancestral energy trying to help us get this thing right.
Yeah, the veil is very thin. Listen.
Yeah.
So in Ifa and Christianity, I mean, even in like, Buddha, Hinduism and Islam, water is such a sacred element. Could you give us insight on how does that play into this conversation we're talking about, the importance and significance of the element of water?
The water, that feminine energy, is nurturing, and it's about cleansing. I think it was the prophet Naaman told a man to go wash himself 7 times. See, all through scripture, when you can break it down and know what you're looking at, water brings about a releasing, a letting go. You know, the Yoruba people need fire. All feminine energy is associated with water. You know, the great mother with the ocean, Yemoja. Then you got Oshun with rivers, and then you got Oya with a rainstorms. And all of that is symbolic of releasing, washing, and letting go. You know, if you quick story, I went to Belize in 2009. And when I left, I had high blood pressure, and the doctor was trying to give me some high blood pressure medication.
When you left Belize, or when you left the state?
When I left the States traveling to go to Belize, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was going to Belize, and before I went to Belize, I went to the doctor. You know, he said, you got high blood pressure, let us give you this stuff, give you this medicine. I said, When I got to Belize, the room where I was staying in a small place called Punta Gorda, and my room was 500 feet from the sea. And I remember every night I would go out, sit outside and hear the waves. Long story short, when I got back to the States, my blood pressure had dropped to status of an athlete.
Wow.
And to me, the water heals. There's been stories of people walking on the beach and their blood pressure goes down. But I don't know if you participated in this, Kai, yet. No, you didn't. Every summer we would do the 21 days, and last day we would go to the beach.
I haven't not.
And we were staying ankle deep. And I had the testimony of 11 sisters that participated in this. And they stood ankle deep, and we faced out to the ocean. And I say, now ask for what you want, pray for what you want, pray for all the things that you wrote in your journal, the 21 days. And I really wasn't amazed, but like a week later, the testimonies that I got, you know, sisters say when they went home, you know, one was trying to repair the relationship with her mother. And she could see the healing taking place with her mother. You know, another one wanted a job, you know, and it's okay to ask for stuff you want. That's what you're here for. And the testimonies that I got from that. And one sister was talking about the relationship, her and her father, when he was living, he had deceased, and it wasn't good. And that process was able to help her heal from that. So water is a strong element. What did Jesus tell a man to go do? Go wash yourself. You know, after all of that, go wash your eyes so that you can see. And so that is the element of water, which our people base everything on nature. Water, the earth, fire. You know, it's all a part of those spiritual systems, which I think when we got involved with Europeans, they kept us away from.
Baba Todd, this is a very broad question, but I think it needs to be asked. What's the status of the Black church?
Man. Well, I've been a part of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, a beautiful institution, one of our oldest institutions. Most of them are getting older. And I don't want to say dying, but they're going through an evolution. And because of COVID, it showed us that a lot of people really don't want to go inside of the walls anymore. They've got used, when you do something for so long, people get used to, they form another habit. And so I think the church, in my opinion, is going to have to go virtual if it's going to survive. Now, will there be structure? Yeah, because people want the social fabric or the social makeup of people, we like to be together. But as far as looking at younger people, I guess that group 20 to 35, those are the ones that I had a lot of interaction with. And they're not too quick to go into a building, a church building. Is that due to COVID, or is that due to the theology? Because, that group of people they're looking out. 2020 was a serious strain on the minds and spirit. You had George Floyd, you had and they're observing this, and they're observing the church, and for some, the church doesn't have the answers. We just got to call it like it is. It doesn't have the answers that they're looking for. So it's one of our oldest and largest institutions. I think they need to reevaluate, reassess, reaffirm. One of my issues with church, where I began to ask questions, is it never could help me understand who I was. Because of that fear of not mixing our culture. See, if something separates you from your culture, you have to look at it, have to take a second look at it. And because of European theology and just European dominance, it has always separated Black people from their culture. That has always been their drive, is to keep your culture away from you, which then weakens you. And so the church, to me, is going to have to take a stance in reconnecting our people to their culture. They're going to have to be brave enough to really look at what's going on. Everything is not a demon. Everything is not evil. Everything is not demonic. And that is the thing that is doing more harm to our people. It's the interpretation of scripture. We have relied on other people to tell us who we are.
Within their cultural worldview, on top of that.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
Right. Which I mean, it's not a surprise that a lot of you have high divorce rates. You have a lot of issues with fidelity. You just have a plethora of social disruptions amongst church-going members because culturally it is alien. That's a very good point. That's an excellent point. I have a couple of follow-up questions. Right? I'm sorry, Baba Todd. Yes, no, go ahead, Baba Todd.
Whatever you're practicing must be practical.
Ashe.
And I call it. It has to be, your spirituality has to be practical, and it can be practical in the church, but it has to be practical, and it has to meet the needs of the people where they are.
That's right.
The physical, the financial, the mental, and the spiritual. So wherever it is, that's what that church is going to have to do to survive.
There was a critique in the rise of the Black Power era, and I would say a lot of people who grasp onto this tenet of consciousness and Black consciousness, whether it's a light road or a very kind of intense one, and this is a Marxist critique that religion is the opiate of the masses, right? And for a while, there was a condemnation or an accusation saying that Black pastors were some of the most problematic people in our community and talking about liberation. What would be your response to that today?
Well, what Jesus was given to them and what was the theology given to our people? It was about master obey your slave, obey your master. Turn the other cheek. And so those scriptures weren't going, we didn't dig down into those scriptures to understand them from a metaphysical, esoteric. We took it literal. And a lot of, again, I say, when you disconnect the culture from whatever your religion, whatever it may be, then you don't have a true, you don't have a true foot to stand on. Because if you look at other folks, they haven't, somewhere in the minds of Black people or Africans, that trauma of 400 years on that plantation, on 200 some years on that plantation, and Jim Crow and all of the segregation for some reason, the liberating Jesus, and I want to be careful with this, Kaya, because I don't want to insult my ancestors about what they didn't do, because they were fighting this thing the best way they could.
Mm-hmm.
And when it really hasn't been given wholesale true liberation theology, you haven't been taught anything else, and you take what has been given to you hook, line, and sinker, you just drink it all. So when the Nat Turner shows up, when the Denmark Vesey shows up, or when I show up talking about what I'm talking about, we crazy.
Mm.
So, it's something wrong with us. And during there was, I can't remember the psychologist, he was out of Philadelphia, that he even had the concept that if a Black person wanted to run away from the plantation, they were mentally ill.
Drapetomania. That was
yeah. So
that was the mental health disease.
Yeah.
Drapetomania.
So really that diagnosis still remains today in some of the spirit of that diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Still remains, but I don't never want to leave saying that I beat up the church, because the church was there for us. But those that served as a place where Harriet Tubman went, we have to honor those. But those that are holding us back and not teaching our people and not liberating and keeping our people in captivity mentally and spiritually, we can't cut for those.
I think also, Baba Todd, I would like to add something, to that. I mean, there also was, just to emphasize what you were saying, there was consistent, frequent deprogramming and reprogramming that went on. For example, my maternal grandmother, who I knew all the way up in 2016 when she passed at the age of 96, born in St. Martinville. In her, as she is knowing that she's transitioning and she's about to go to the other side, she begins to really detail what life was like growing up in the southern part, Southwest Louisiana. And she talked about this time when the people from the US Census came along, and a lot of these people in the area have what we would call Latin names, French, Portuguese, Italian, maybe some Spanish. And the census, the Yankees would come down and they would change their names to an English name, right? And so a lot of people's identities were just flipped over in the matter of some white person's pen. Not saying that a French name was better or anything like that, but if one could do that with the census, all of the other things that were done daily that fed into your conscious and your subconscious, that who you are, what you did, what you practiced, how you practiced it, was something that was evil and no good and bad. And you're trying to be a citizen, right? So over time, when you are not, and then if you have disruptions that are so huge in your family, a lot of people didn't have that one or two people that sat them down and said, this is the real truth. This is who we present to in public, but let me give you the real truth. And this is why we do this, and this is why we do that, and this is why we do that. Those things, and they were particularly disrupted when people began to move up north, right? And there's a really good book. I always cite this book, but I love this book. It's something like Giving Up Our Tribal Marks by Michael Gomez. But he talks about this process in which Black people had to consciously, willingly, and intentionally give up their ethnic identities to take on this race called Black in order to fight off the slave chains, right? But that came at a cost, because the more you try to become this American, the less you are this African or this Native or this Indigenous, right? And so these things come at a price. And I speak of my grandmother because I used an actually Haitian priest to marry my husband and I. A lot of people did. I had a judge who was my cousin. Hey, Alicia, I don't know if you knew this, But and then I had I think what's the woman voodoo priest, the Ugon or the Mambo?
I think it's Mambo or
Mambo. It's
Mam.
the
Yeah.
Mambo. And so she was actually from Houston. And she yo peoples, but she found out that she was of Haitian ancestry. And you know, we did the whole thing. And so she came to me later on in the day crying and saying how my grandmother just quietly pulled her aside and said, you know, you do the old way, and that's good. I thought that it was forgotten, you know. So these are things that she would have never, I was like, grandma would have never told me that, right? So I think part of what we've got to do in terms of understanding what happened and how we get back is what you say, listen to the dreams, listen to, like, you know, these unexpected messages that come to you when you're awake. You know, in presentations like yours, Baba Todd. What's your thoughts on that?
You know, while you were talking, all I could think about was memory.
Mm-hmm.
And our memories have been severed. And her coming back to your grandmother is part of that healing process. You know, you're doing it the old way, yes. Reconnecting. Because, you know, Kaya, since our people have been in this Western hemisphere, there has not, I mean, me and you got it easy. But just imagine you wake up every day and every day is life or death. Every day on that plantation, you are at the whims of a man who, depending on how he got up out the bed, how he feel, whether he want to kill you or not, or separate you from your family. And so the psychological damage, the psychological warfare that our people have experienced, that stuff is generational. And so it's up to me and you to heal. Believe it or not, you can reach back. Kaya has to heal first and get her stuff together.
Right.
And once Kaya get her stuff together, you really can reach back in the past and heal them in order to stop it from going on in the future. And so that is the thing. We have to get to a place to where, and I go back to culture again, is that we got to not be ashamed of our stuff. You know, you can't be ashamed of what Big Mama did or what Big Mama did for you. You just need to sit down and understand that. And then there needs to be an historical teaching too about our transition from the Nile Valley into West Africa, into Congo, up into Jamaica, up into Haiti, up along the South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia coast, how we got to where we are, what's the significance of it. And see, we haven't been given that picture of our past, of our history. And so, but all we've got is, you know, you were over there worshiping trees. And that's why, you know, and this is the one that I definitely, you're going to have to help me with this one. We're going to work on this one together. The reason why.
I know what you're about to say. I know what you're about to say.
The reason why you were taken into slavery was to be introduced to Jesus. So all of that, so, you know, now all of that goes into the church along with the curse story, the Ham story that's never been dealt with. And I'll have to tell you another story about I had a presentation in front of a mixed group, the Ham story. Though all of those things have never really been dealt with in the Black church. We've never addressed it, you know.
And I would say, like, maybe on a national level, right? I mean, you have maybe here and there, but like, because from what I understand, now, mind you, I was raised Catholic, so I'm a fish out of water. And some of the conversations, nonetheless, I'm Black, right? And you know, actually, my grandmother, my father's side comes from a line of preachers, right, out of Alabama, who were preacher activists. And so when my grandmother, you know, she marries my grandfather, she has children, my grandfather passes, whatever the Baptist church they were in, they disowned my grandmother. It was said that was because she was very, very, very dark skinned. And my grandfather was either a mulatto, but very, 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 very fair. And so this was one of these churches that had And you know, these churches is part of our history that had like color codes and hair codes connected to it. She didn't qualify. And so then she then goes to the Catholic Church. That's my father's side. My mother's side, Louisiana, there's very long history, you know, going back generations. But I'm saying all that to say I didn't hear that thesis until I was at FAMU at Florida A&M in Tallahassee, and there was a woman reading a book. This is like 1997, 98, reading this. Some book came out around this time that is talking about, you know, this is, you know, this is the reason. And it's a really complicated conversation to have, because in Ifa, you talk about destiny, things happen for a reason, right? So, but what happens in understanding why things happen for a reason, this is a justification for people to accept their lot in life and to continue to distance themselves from their traditional stuff. What a lot of people don't know is that voodoo became demonized because it was very heavily practiced. All right. If you know the Starbucks symbol, which is a double-tailed mermaid, that is the Mami Wata Olokun, that is voodoo all the way down, right? I deviated. But I lost my train of thought when I mentioned that damn Starbucks. But you go ahead, Baba Todd. I forgot what I was going to say. That damn voodoo, damn Mami Wata got me all messed up in the sauce. Okay.
Well, you know, when we talk about voodoo, when we talk about these African spiritual systems, it is believed that voodoo is the oldest spiritual system in the world.
Ashe, I can believe it.
And Dr. James Smalls talks about that a lot. All of these systems come along the Nile Valley, and they migrated west.
I'm listening.
They migrated west, and that's why I say history is a beautiful thing. They migrated west, and when our people were captured, kidnapped, they took their systems into, like, for instance, voodoo. The home is Dahomey, what we now know as modern Benin. Those people went into Haiti, along with people who were in the Congo, went into Haiti, and some of the Igbo people. The beautiful thing is that the voodoo that was in Benin is a different kind of voodoo that is in Haiti. But it is no different if you were to see a ritual. Now, Hollywood has done it a disservice. It's no different than the church service. And our whole spiritual journey, or just who we are as a people. I don't care if you're in an AME church sometime and they feel it, and them Negroes get to dancing and shouting. You can't tell if you're in an AME church, a Pentecostal church, or a voodoo ceremony.
Ashe. And you know, this is the part I wanted to say. I'm sorry I deviated, but it actually goes back to, well, one, it makes sense. When I was in Nigeria, when I was I think at Ile-Ife, I began to know some of the people there. I was like, hey brother, let me holler at you real quick. Where are the Yoruba from? He was like, we from Egypt. Everybody knows that we traveled. I mean, we migrated. This is just an everyday brother. This is not, some, erudite, some learned brother, like in the Western sense of the word. And he just kept it pushing. And so part of this history of being of the water and from the water and the depths of the water, right? And coming out of this, this murky darkness and, into this thing it's across all mythological legends, right? This coming out of this water, coming from water. But I also wanted to say, there's a brother. Baba Todd, where you at? Okay.
Can you see? Okay, yeah.
I can see. There's also this brother, very quickly. I know we got to wrap up because I know you got to get ready for your services this weekend. But there's a brother from the Delta, from Mississippi Delta, and his name escapes me. But I learned about his research maybe about 2 years ago. But he traced blues. He traced blues to Uganda.
Ah,
At the
okay.
Nile, the one of the, I guess maybe where you got where the Nile River is in Uganda, and
Yeah.
how the blues music is very similar to the people of that region who were captured and taken up into what is present day Egypt and forced into a servitude. And the blues was about being away from home, missing home, and lamenting, this and being nostalgic. I was like, wow, that is so deep. How this memory that you talk about and this spiritual and this DNA that's in our cellular structure does not forget part of, and I'm saying this because part of the work we do in our lives, individually and collectively, is how much we can pull from this cellular memory, from the ether, and apply it properly. Anything out of context is vulgar. So when this whole conversation about what women wear and twerking and all this other stuff, I'm like, have you been to Africa? They be
Yeah.
twerking all
Yeah.
day, every day. A booty
Yeah.
twerk, some booty meat jumping is not. It's not vulgar, right? And
Yeah.
and actually, there's often this marriage between the sacred, the so-called sacred, and the so-called secular. There's no division of it, right? So I just wanted to add that, Baba Todd, this Easter, as we are going into it, or as we're celebrating right now, what do you encourage people to meditate on?
Meditate on, for individually, for what you want to see for yourself in the next 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 5 categories: your relationship, with your family, your finances, your health, not in that particular order. And then, careers or goals. That's part of the 21-day deal we do. We look at our health, our relationships, our finances, our careers, and our goals. And also, I would just like start doing some genealogy.
Mm.
And I know this is touchy with some of our folks. Some of the old folks don't want to ask. Older people, the elders in our family, sometimes not going to really come out and tell you. But if you go to them right and you ask them, they'll start talking.
Mm.
Give Uncle Willie some Hennessy. He might start telling you everything.
Oh,
you'll be
Lord.
surprised. So, yeah, let that be a part of our agenda, is to understand ourselves more in our family. Now, for some of it, it's painful, but I think overall, begin that process of remembering, reconnecting the memory, that ancestral DNA memory will start to come back. Because when you ask questions, I tell everybody, the spirit world, God is obligated to answer you.
Last question, sir. I know time is only a man's figment of imagination. There's no such thing as time. Yeah. But if we were talking to the young folk who you said are between this age, I would say roughly about 15 to 35. Okay. We have all of these questions, who are seeking answers outside of those walls they call the church, and are on Instagram, Lord of mercy, and have become these TikTok Wiccans or whatever it is. But in general, for those searching, seeking, pushing, learning, what advice do you impart on them?
I would tell them to start reading. And we can help them by developing some reading clubs, Saturday schools, where, coordinate having some where they can play the games and where they can discuss. And some elders there that can help facilitate. Some elders that are well-grounded. Just because you're 65, some of y'all, I don't want you talking to our young folks, but somebody that's well-grounded can get them to. It starts with history. It starts with, when I had a rites of passage program, the first thing I did was to get them to fill out a genealogical chart. Take this home with mama. Y'all ask who grandma is, who grandpa is, who the great grandma. If you can find out, I always tell my children they're blessed because they can go back 7 generations.
Wow.
So if you can go back 7 generations, just go back as far as you can and just ask the question. It starts with asking the question, Kaya, but I would love for us to start having cultural Saturdays, 9 to 11. Give them some snacks and then let them read some books. And well, I know books are probably not the end thing, but hey, let's go on something on the web, on TikTok. Start making some historical things on TikTok. But that's the way we can reconnect the memory bank.
I appreciate that. Brother Baba Todd, I hope you have a wonderful Easter holiday. And I definitely will be talking to you around summer solstice, but I hope to be talking to you sooner than later.
I'm going to Mississippi this weekend, and I'll have some serious stuff for you when I get back.
Okay, we could do that report. Let me say this about Mississippi, right? Not just because it's my patrilineal, whereabouts, but people always talk about Louisiana being this hotbed of African traditional activity. I said, no, baby, it's in Mississippi.
It's the SIP.
Mississippi carry that funk. Okay, you ain't ready for Mississippi. It's one of the most still kind of like untouched states with a lot of nature. And this is exactly what we're talking about. It needs this nature. And so there's a lot of practitioners in Mississippi. When I was in Vicksburg for my father's 50th anniversary, one of his old high school mates, there was her husband. She had a husband, and the husband had elekes, which are these beads. And he had Eshu Elegba on. And I said, oh, Eshu Elegba Elekes. And they were so shocked. And his wife said, you know about that Santa Maria? You know about that Santa Maria? I said, yes, ma'am. I know about Santa Maria and all sorts of things, but don't sleep on Mississippi. So I'll be looking forward to what you have to say with that.
I'm going to be going along the Natchez Trace, Highway 61, for those that know.
Okay, yes, sir. So I'll be seeing you, wishing you again the best and the warmest salutations and meditations, and pick up some of that dirt for me.
I will.
Yes,
I got
sir.
you.
All right. Salute.
Peace.